As I sit in the dimly lit editing suite, piecing together the fragments of our latest documentary, I can't help but feel a sense of awe at the stories we've uncovered. The soft hum of equipment and the flickering screens around me fade into the background as I immerse myself in the footage, reliving the moments that have led us to this point. Our journey into the realm of past life memories and reincarnation has been nothing short of extraordinary, challenging my perceptions of reality and the human experience. The concept of souls traversing time, carrying memories from one life to the next, has long fascinated humanity. But it wasn't until we began exploring the specific phenomenon of individuals claiming to remember being pilots or aircrew members in past wars that I truly felt the weight of these possibilities. As a documentary filmmaker, I've encountered my fair share of unusual tales, but none have captivated me quite like these. Our investigation led us to multiple case studies spanning different age groups and time periods. Each story we uncovered seemed to peel back another layer of mystery surrounding the human consciousness. But it was the case of young Ethan Carver that first drew us into this intricate web of memories and history. Born in 1998, Ethan was just a child when he began having vivid dreams and memories of being a WWII pilot. I remember clearly the day we first met the Carver family. Robert and Samantha, Ethan's parents, greeted us with a mixture of hope and hesitation in their eyes. As we set up our equipment in their modest suburban home, I could sense the tension in the air, a family grappling with something far beyond their understanding. Ethan, a bright-eyed boy with a mop of unruly brown hair, seemed both excited and nervous about sharing his experiences. As the camera rolled, he began to recount his dreams with a clarity that sent shivers down my spine. He spoke of soaring through cloud-studded skies, the vibrations of a powerful engine reverberating through his body, and the weight of responsibility pressing down on him as he piloted his aircraft through enemy territory. What struck me most was the level of detail in Ethan's recollections. He described the cockpit of a WWII fighter plane with the precision of a seasoned pilot, pointing out instruments and controls that a child his age should have no knowledge of. His small hands moved through the air, mimicking the actions of adjusting throttles and flipping switches, his eyes focused on some distant point, as if he were once again high above the Pacific. As we delved deeper into Ethan's memories, specific locations began to emerge. He spoke of Chichi-jima and Iwo-jima with a familiarity that was uncanny. These names rolled off his tongue as easily as if he were describing his own neighborhood. He recounted harrowing missions, dogfights that made my heart race just listening to them, and the camaraderie among his fellow pilots. The emotion in his voice as he described losing friends in battle was raw and genuine, bringing tears to his mother's eyes and leaving his father visibly shaken. The impact of these memories on the Carver family was profound. Samantha confided in me during a quiet moment that she often found Ethan staring at the sky, a look of longing in his eyes that seemed to belong to someone far older. Robert, initially skeptical, had thrown himself into researching WWII aviation history, driven by a need to understand his son's experiences. As our first day of filming drew to a close, I found myself grappling with a whirlwind of emotions. The rational part of my mind searched for logical explanations. Perhaps Ethan had been exposed to war stories or documentaries that had sparked his imagination. But the depth of his knowledge and the visceral nature of his recollections defied simple explanation. That night, as I reviewed the footage in my hotel room, I couldn't shake the feeling that we had stumbled upon something truly extraordinary. Ethan's story was just the beginning, the first thread in a tapestry of memories that spanned generations and challenged our understanding of consciousness and identity. Little did I know then how deep this rabbit hole would go, or how it would change my perspective on life, death, and the possibility of existence beyond the boundaries we perceive. As our journey into the enigmatic world of past life memories continued, we found ourselves venturing even further back in time, to the era of the Great War. The case that drew us in was that of Olivia, a precocious 3-year-old whose knowledge of WWII aviation left us utterly astounded. I remember the day we arrived at Olivia's home, the sun casting long shadows across the neatly manicured lawn, as if reaching back through the decades to touch upon forgotten moments. Olivia's parents greeted us with a mixture of pride and bewilderment. Their daughter, barely out of diapers, had become an unexpected repository of historical knowledge that defied explanation. As we set up our equipment in their cozy living room, I couldn't help but notice the walls adorned with colorful children's drawings, typical scenes of houses, and stick figures interspersed with surprisingly detailed sketches of biplanes and triplanes. When Olivia entered the room, her bright eyes scanning our faces and equipment with curiosity, I was struck by the contrast between her tiny frame and the weight of the memories she seemed to carry. As we began our interview, her parents sat nearby, their hands clasped tightly together, ready to witness once again the phenomenon that had turned their world upside down. It started innocuously enough, with Olivia humming a tune as she played with her toys. But as her mother explained, it wasn't just any tune. It was "Pack Up Your Troubles in Your Old Kit Bag," a popular song among British soldiers during World War I. The melody flowed from Olivia's lips with the ease of someone who had sung it 1,000 times before, in another life, another time. But it wasn't just the songs that set Olivia apart. As we gently probed her knowledge, she began to speak about aircraft with a certainty that was both fascinating and unsettling. "Sopwith Camel," she declared proudly, pointing to a picture book of planes her parents had bought in an attempt to understand her obsession. "Fast, good turner, dangerous spin." Her small fingers traced the outline of the aircraft, lingering on details that even I, with my research for this documentary, would have overlooked. As our interview progressed, Olivia's demeanor began to shift. Her playful exuberance gave way to a more somber mood as she described scenes from high above the battlefields of Europe. "Scary in the clouds," she murmured, her eyes distant. "Bullets like angry bees. Friends fall down, don't come back." The gravity in her voice sent chills down my spine, and I saw her mother wipe away a tear. The challenge of verifying Olivia's claims was daunting. World War I had ended over a century ago, and finding corroborating evidence for the specific details she provided seemed nearly impossible. Yet, as we dug deeper, consulting with military historians and aviation experts, we found ourselves uncovering fragments of truth in her stories. The technical details she casually mentioned about the aircraft, quirks of handling, the sounds of the engines, the feel of the control stick, aligned eerily well with historical accounts. As a documentarian, I've always prided myself on maintaining a level of skepticism, seeking rational explanations for the phenomena we encounter. But Olivia's case pushed the boundaries of what I thought possible. How could a child so young possess such specific knowledge of a time long past? The usual explanations, exposure to media, overheard conversations, seemed woefully inadequate in the face of her detailed recollections. In search of alternative perspectives, we consulted child psychologists and experts in early childhood development. They offered various theories, from exceptional auditory recall to the possibility of genetic memory passed down through generations. Yet even these experts seemed at a loss to fully explain the depth and specificity of Olivia's knowledge. One particularly memorable moment came when we introduced Olivia to a replica World War I pilot's uniform. Her small hands immediately went to the pockets, pulling out a pair of goggles. Without hesitation, she placed them on her head, adjusting them with the practiced ease of someone who had done so countless times before. "To keep the wind out," she explained matter-of-factly, "and the bugs from your eyes." It was a simple statement, but one that captured the visceral reality of early aviation in a way that no history book could convey. As our time with Olivia and her family drew to a close, I found myself grappling with more questions than answers. The innocence of her youth stood in stark contrast to the weight of the memories she seemed to carry. It was a reminder of the complex tapestry of human experience, where the threads of past and present intertwine in ways we're only beginning to understand. Leaving Olivia's home, I couldn't shake the feeling that we had glimpsed something profound. a window into the mysteries of consciousness and the enduring impact of human experience across time. As I packed away our equipment, my mind already racing with the implications of what we'd witnessed, I knew that Olivia's story was far from the end of our journey. It was merely another piece in the intricate puzzle we were slowly assembling, a puzzle that promised to challenge our very understanding of life, death, and the nature of the human soul. As our investigation into past life memories deepened, we encountered a case that shifted our perspective once again. This time, we found ourselves delving into the experiences of Michael, an adult man whose vivid dreams of being a B-17 bomber crewman in World War II had begun to blur the lines between past and present. The moment I stepped into Michael's modest apartment, I sensed a palpable tension in the air, as if the very walls were saturated with the weight of his nocturnal journeys. Michael greeted us with tired eyes that spoke volumes about the toll these experiences were taking on him. As we set up our equipment, I couldn't help but notice the stacks of World War II history books scattered around the room, their pages dog-eared and marked with countless sticky notes. It was clear that Michael had thrown himself into researching the era that haunted his dreams, seeking validation for the memories that felt so real, yet so impossible. As we began our interview, Michael's initial hesitation quickly gave way to an almost desperate need to share his experiences. He described his dreams with a clarity that was both fascinating and unsettling. "I'm not just watching these scenes," he explained, his voice tight with emotion. "I'm living them. I can feel the vibration of the engines, smell the oil and cordite, hear the deafening roar of flak exploding around us. It's more real than anything I've ever experienced in my waking life." Michael went on to recount specific missions in vivid detail. He spoke of flying through thick cloud cover over occupied Europe, the tension mounting as they approached their target. He described the bone-deep cold at high altitude, the camaraderie among the crew, and the gut-wrenching fear as enemy fighters appeared on the horizon. What struck me most was the emotional authenticity of his recollections. When he spoke of losing fellow crewmen, his voice cracked, and tears welled up in his eyes. These weren't just dreams. They were wounds that seemed to transcend time. As a documentarian, I've learned to look beyond the surface, to seek the deeper truths in the stories we tell. With Michael, I found myself grappling with questions that challenged the very foundations of our understanding of consciousness and identity. How could someone in the 21st century carry such visceral memories of a conflict that ended decades before their birth? The depth of his knowledge extended far beyond what one might glean from books or films, encompassing sensory experiences and emotional responses that seemed impossibly authentic. To help validate Michael's claims, we arranged for him to meet with World War II veterans who had served on B-17 bombers. The encounters were nothing short of extraordinary. As Michael described specific details about the aircraft and mission procedures, I watched the veterans' expressions shift from skepticism to astonishment. There were moments when they finished each other's sentences, sharing inside jokes and references that left even the most hardened skeptics among us speechless. One particularly poignant moment came when Michael described a harrowing mission over Germany. As he recounted the events, one of the veterans, a man in his 90s, grew pale. "We never reported that," he whispered, his hands shaking. "It was too awful. We agreed never to speak of it." The room fell silent as we all grappled with the implications of what we had just witnessed. The impact of these dreams on Michael's daily life was profound. He spoke of waking in cold sweats, his heart racing, the echoes of explosions still ringing in his ears. His relationships had suffered, his work performance had declined, and he found himself increasingly isolated, unable to relate to a world that seemed trivial in comparison to the life and death struggles he relived each night. As our interview progressed, we delved into Michael's attempts to reconcile these memories with his current identity. He shared how he had sought help from therapists, sleep specialists, and even paranormal researchers, all in an effort to make sense of his experiences. "Some days, I don't know who I am anymore," he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. "Am I Michael, the software developer born in 1985, or am I the young airman, forever trapped in the skies over war-torn Europe? The psychological toll of carrying these memories was evident in every aspect of Michael's life. He showed us journals filled with detailed sketches of bomber formations, navigational charts, and technical diagrams of B-17 components. His ability to reproduce these complex details without reference material was astounding, yet it was clear that this knowledge was both a blessing and a curse. As our time with Michael drew to a close, I found myself reflecting on the nature of memory, trauma, and the human psyche. Here was a man who carried the burden of experiences he couldn't possibly have lived, yet they shaped his reality as surely as any first-hand encounter. It raised profound questions about the nature of consciousness and the possibility that some part of us, call it a soul if you will, might indeed carry the imprint of past lives. Leaving Michael's apartment, I felt a mix of awe and unease. We had set out to document stories of past life memories, but what we were uncovering seemed to challenge the very fabric of reality as we understood it. As I packed away our equipment, my mind raced with the implications of what we had witnessed. If Michael's experiences were more than just dreams, what did that mean for our understanding of life, death, and the continuity of consciousness? The sun was setting as we drove away, casting long shadows across the city streets. I couldn't help but feel that we were standing on the threshold of something profound, a mystery that could reshape our understanding of human existence. Michael's story was not just about the past. It was a window into the complexities of the human mind and the possibility that our experiences, our very essence, might transcend the boundaries of a single lifetime. As our documentary journey neared its conclusion, we found ourselves drawn back to the story that had first captured our attention, that of young Ethan Carver. Several years had passed since our initial encounter with the Carver family, and I couldn't help but feel a mix of anticipation and trepidation as we approached their home once again. The quiet suburban streets seemed unchanged, but I knew that behind the familiar facade, lives had been irrevocably altered by the weight of memories from another time. Robert and Samantha Carver greeted us with warm smiles tinged with a newfound weariness. The intervening years had clearly been a journey of discovery and challenge for the entire family. As we settled into their living room, now adorned with framed photographs of World War I aircraft alongside family portraits, I sensed a shift in the atmosphere, a blend of acceptance and lingering wonder at the extraordinary path their lives had taken. Ethan, now on the cusp of adolescence, entered the room with a quiet confidence that belied his years. Gone was the wide-eyed child we had first met. In his place stood a young man who seemed to carry the wisdom of multiple lifetimes in his gaze. As we began our interview, Ethan spoke with a maturity that left me momentarily speechless, articulating his experiences with a clarity and insight that few adults could match. The Carvers shared with us the results of their years-long investigation into the life of William Fletcher, Jr., the World War II pilot, whose experiences Ethan had so vividly recalled. Their quest had taken them across the country, delving into military archives, interviewing veterans, and piecing together a puzzle that spanned decades. The evidence they had uncovered was, to put it mildly, compelling. Samantha, her voice filled with a mixture of awe and lingering disbelief, recounted how they had managed to track down Fletcher's surviving family members. The moment Ethan met William's sister, she said, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, it was like watching a reunion between long-lost siblings. He knew things, intimate family details, that were never recorded in any official documents. Robert, once the skeptic of the family, now spoke with the fervor of a convert. He showed us a meticulously compiled dossier of evidence, flight logs that corroborated Ethan's recollections of specific missions, photographs of squadron members Ethan had named without prompting, even a letter from Fletcher to his family that described events Ethan had recounted in exact detail years before the letter was discovered. As I listened to their account, I found myself grappling with the implications of what we were uncovering. The Carvers' investigation had gone beyond simply validating Ethan's memories. It had opened up a Pandora's box of questions about the nature of consciousness, the persistence of identity across lifetimes, and the very fabric of reality as we understood it. Ethan, for his part, spoke of his experiences with a thoughtful introspection that was both heartening and slightly unnerving. "It's like having two sets of memories," he explained, his young face creased with concentration. "There's me, Ethan, with my life here and now. But there's also this other part of me, the part that remembers being William. It's not always easy to reconcile the two, but I'm learning to see it as a gift rather than a burden." As our interview progressed, we delved into the broader implications of Ethan's case and the others we had encountered in our journey. The Carvers had become reluctant experts in the field of reincarnation research, and they shared insights from the various experts they had consulted: psychologists, neuroscientists, parapsychologists, and even quantum physicists. The theories that emerged painted a picture of human consciousness far more complex and interconnected than conventional science had ever suggested. One particularly intriguing aspect of Ethan's case was the specificity of his memories to aviation and warfare. This pattern, mirrored in the cases of Olivia and Michael, raised fascinating questions about the nature of traumatic experiences and their potential to leave imprints across lifetimes. Were these individuals somehow more susceptible to carrying memories from past lives, or was there something about the intense experiences of wartime that made them more likely to persist? As we wrapped up our final interview, I found myself reflecting on the profound impact these stories had on not just the individuals involved, but on our collective understanding of human existence. The Carvers, like the other families we had encountered, had been thrust into a reality that challenged everything they thought they knew about life, death, and the nature of the self. Ethan's final words to us stayed with me long after we had packed up our equipment and said our goodbyes. "I used to think these memories were a curse," he said, his young face serious. "But now, I see them as a reminder of how connected we all are across time and space. Maybe that's the real lesson in all of this, that our experiences, our struggles, our triumphs, they don't just belong to us. They're part of something much bigger." As I drove away from the Carver home for the last time, the setting sun painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, I couldn't shake the feeling that we had only scratched the surface of a mystery far greater than we could have imagined when we began this journey. The stories of Ethan, Olivia, Michael, and countless others we had encountered along the way had woven together into a tapestry that challenged our very understanding of reality. In the quiet of the car, surrounded by equipment that had captured these extraordinary tales, I found myself pondering the questions that would likely haunt me for years to come. What does it truly mean to be human? Are we more than just the sum of our current experiences? And if the memories and experiences of past lives can indeed carry forward, what responsibility do we bear to those who came before us and those who will come after? As a documentarian, I had set out to tell a story about past life memories. What I discovered was a narrative far more complex, a journey that had taken us to the very edges of human understanding and beyond. As I began the process of piecing together our footage, weaving together these incredible accounts, I knew that the true impact of what we had uncovered was yet to be felt. Whatever conclusions our viewers might draw, one thing was certain: the stories of Ethan, Olivia, and Michael would challenge us all to reconsider the boundaries of human consciousness and the enduring mysteries of existence.